All right, hold on a second. Are you really looking for real estate advice on YouTube? I think all your family and friends have already told you this is the worst time to be buying. They've told you just rent, just hold on. Hold on for a year. Rent something. You'll get back in the market eventually. You're going to get a much better deal. The interest rates are going to keep going up, so you've got to wait for them to stabilize and come back down, on and on and on. Well, I'm here to tell you why that may not be the smartest thing. Maybe it is the right for you, and maybe it is right for your friends and family. But in general, the reasons why people are telling you this and the reasons why people are waiting right now are actually for the wrong reasons. They just don't understand how the interest rates work and how the amortization schedule works. They don't understand that buying a house when it's lower and there's much less demand allows you to get more options, allows you to get the house you want at a better price, and you can deal with the interest later. Again, this may not be right for everybody. So what I did was I put together a fake scenario of a house that would have sold last year and then sold this year. Price adjustment based on the amount that the price has fallen from last year to this year, the adjustment, and then also the interest rate from last year and then the interest rate from this year. So what we're doing is we're going to compare and see, hey, if you bought that same house at the value it was last year for the low interest rate, and then you bought that same house this year for the higher interest rate but the lower payment on the house, would it be a better deal? How long would it take for that to make sense for you? So I put that together for you using real amortization schedules and real loan numbers. So if you want to stick around, I'm going to get into that and kind of walk through the actual real life scenario of what it would be like if you had bought a house last year versus this year with the interest rates going up. So if you could like and subscribe, we get into issues with real estate all the time. We get into home improvement stuff. We get into all sorts of home buyer type topics. So please like and subscribe. Otherwise, stick around and let's get into a scenario of what it would be like if you had bought a house last year versus this year. Okay, so before we get into that, I want to get into something about rentals. So if you're thinking about renting, the rental market right now, especially in the Treasure Valley area where I'm located, is crazy. It's bananas. The rental properties are flying off the hook. Prices keep going up, and they're going to continue to go up as the housing seems to slump. Everybody has the same perspective. They don't want to buy right now. They want to rent. A lot of people are moving, and they aren't sure they're going to like the area, so they're kind of dipping one toe in instead of jumping all the way in, and they're renting a house to see if they like the area. If they don't like it, they feel like they're safer, they can move back or whatever. What I'm going to get into is the reasons why you may not want to rent right now. You may want to buy right now. I personally bought a home in Star, Idaho 1 year ago, a little over a year ago in August of 2021. What I experienced was absolute mayhem, absolute craziness. I mean, we knew what we were getting into, but it was way worse once we started getting into it. You're trying to find a house that you really love in a neighborhood that you like, with a cul-de-sac, with a big backyard, with mountain views, with whatever it is, and you're just getting crushed left and right. You just can't find the house that you want. The dream is dying right in front of you. You're just going to take whatever you can get because you need to buy a house now. That's not the case right now. Right now, it's a buyer's market. Right then, it was a seller's market, and it was a really bad seller's market. So what we have is the opposite right now. The one caveat is I don't want to pay the interest, man. I knew a year ago people were paying 2.5%, 3% interest, 3.5% interest, whatever it is. I don't want to pay 8% or whatever the current rate is right now. And it keeps going up and the values keep going down. Why do I want to buy? Well, let's get into a reason why. Let's get into a scenario and kind of show historically why the values of your home are still going to go up after so much time, why the interest rates fluctuate, and also go into a specific scenario of a home that you may have bought last year and then this year. And we're not going to get into the details of whether it's a nice house or whether it's the house of your dreams or whatever. We're going to stick strictly to the numbers and kind of show you why it makes sense mathematically for you to buy the house today versus a year ago. Okay, so let's get into that scenario. I want to start off with that first. So up on your screen, you see a home that cost $550,000 in November of 2021, which was probably about like the average middle of the road house in the Boise Treasure Valley area, depending on what actual city you were in. You put $150,000 down on this property and you financed $400,000 at 3% APR for 30 years, which is a very common loan back then. Monthly payment would be $1,686 per month. Okay, so now take that exact same house and we're going to move that over to what's happening right now in November of 2022. That same house is going to cost you about $400,000, let's say. We're going to take about a 30% haircut off the house because I believe that's about where we are. And again, it kind of depends on what exact market you're in. But in the Treasure Valley area, there's a lot of markets that are about 30% down from where they were a year ago. So that's why I use that. So we put down $120,000 for the down payment, and we're financing $280,000 at 8% for 30 years, which that's about the rate right now. And our monthly payment is going to be about $2,016 per month. So right away, you're noticing, okay, well, I'm putting down less money, but my monthly payment's higher. Okay, well, if this was a real life scenario, the monthly payment was really bothering you, you could just put down that extra 30 grand and you could lower that monthly payment a little bit. So we're going to kind of focus on this scenario. I want to kind of show there's a million different ways you could spin this. So we're going to focus on this way, but try to stick with me here. If you need to pause and rewind, you can. Buying a house now versus then. Buying in 2021, the $1,665 per month with $150 down, and in 2022, it's $216 per month with $120 down payment. Okay, we got that. Okay, and just as a reminder, rates do fluctuate. So I put this up just kind of as a reminder because a lot of people, they know this is true. They know the rates fluctuate. They know prices are always changing on rates and stuff. But it's important to remind people at this point that rates are not always going to be where they are today. They do go up and they do go down. There's always fluctuations. And the cool part is you're locked into the rate that you get today. So if it goes to 20%, let's say, which I highly doubt, but if it goes to 20%, you're still locked in at 8%. You're going to be loving that 8% rate when all your friends are looking at 20% houses. So it's all about perspective. And when it lowers, and it always does, you're going to be able to get into the lower rate by just refinancing. So there are plenty of options, but let's kind of stick with this scenario and see where it goes. Okay, so the big question that I'm going to bring up today, and this is kind of the whole point of this, we could have gone a million different directions, but I wanted to focus on the break-even point. So what is the break-even point that I'm referring to? How long do you have to stay in the home before the higher interest overrides the lower price that you paid for the home? So in other words, how long do you have to stay in this house before it makes sense to have paid the rate down, let's say, or to have bought the house for a higher price with the lower interest rate already? So when does it make more sense to have bought last year versus this year is kind of the main gist of this whole thing. Okay, so here's a scenario. What if I sell after 5 years? So a lot of people move every 3 to 5 years. Me personally, I think I average about 3 years in one spot, which I'm ashamed to say. I wish I could say it was different. Every time I move, I think I'm going to stay for a long time, and it never ends up working out. So the average person in my age group ends up moving once every 3 to 5 years. So I ran this scenario to start with just to show. So what if I sell after 5 years? Selling the home for $600,000 after 5 years of homeownership. What's my pocketing amount? So what's the amount that I'm going to end up netting? In 2021 at 3% rate home purchase, you're going to take home $245,173. In 2022 at the 8% rate, you're going to take home $334,085. So that's the amount of money that you're going to take home after just 5 years. And that's assuming you kept the interest at 8% the entire time that you were there for 5 years. You never refied. So this is an 8% loan for the whole time. You still came out ahead by quite a bit. All right, so what if I do a 10 years? So what if I stay for 10 years? So after 10 years is up, I put the house up for sale, it sells. This is what I'm looking at. So if I bought the house in 2021 for the $400,000 loan amount and I did 3% rate on that, I'm going to take home $296,848. If I had bought the house right now in 2022 with 8% interest rate on the home at the $280,000 loan amount, I'm looking at $354,788. So this shows you that we're still quite a ways off. Even after 10 years of home ownership, we're still doing much, much better having the higher interest rate buying the house now versus that same house a year ago. Let's take it a step further. Let's go to the 15-year mark. So you've been in the house a full 15 years. You put the house up for sale, you sell it. Now we're selling the house for the same price. Nothing's changed. $600,000 after 15 years of home ownership. What am I taking home? So 2021 at 3% rate, you're looking at $356,875. And at 2022 with the 8% rate, you're looking at 385, 633. So even after 15 full years of ownership with never having refied it, which is almost impossible if that would happen, the fact that the rates wouldn't dip down below 8% to enough to where it would make you want to refinance. Very slim chance of that ever happening historically, but let's just say that's the case. You never refied, you stayed in. You're still doing better after 15 years of home ownership. Let's go to 20 years. Selling the home for $600,000 after 20 years of full home ownership. You're looking at buying the house in 2021 at 3%. You're looking at 426,603 as your pocketing amount. 2022 home at 8% interest rate. You're looking at taking home 431,587. So even though it's really close, you're still better off after 20 whole years of your 30-year loan. You're still better off in this scenario buying the house at the lower price with the higher interest rate and never refinancing. What's the break-even point? It was somewhere in the middle of the 21-year mark. So before you get to 22 years of home ownership, you will have more equity buying the less expensive home with the higher rate. So this graph here just shows you the history of the housing market interest rates. So you can see it got up to almost 18% back in the 80s. And this just shows you the progression downward. And you might be thinking, well, yeah, the home prices have gone up so much. I mean, no one's going to be able to afford 18% interest buying a $600,000 house. Back then, they were paying $40,000, $50,000 for a house. And you wouldn't be wrong about that. That's true. However, this just shows that the trend is always moving downward. It kind of goes up a little bit and kind of goes down a little bit, up again, down. So the ebb and flow of the system is always going to be up and down. There's always going to be some ups and downs. But the one thing that you can't change, you can't go in and change the purchase price of the house later like you can with a refi. So it's important to remember what the most important thing is, and that's the house price, the ability to be able to pick and choose which house you want, to have 20 houses to look at in a weekend and get to sit at home and relax in your own couch and actually look the pictures over with your spouse and say, which one do you like best, honey? Instead of, wow, we better make an offer on this one because we looked at 30 houses and 29 of them went pending while we were looking at them. You know, that's where we were last year. So it's important to keep in mind the things that you can't change and the things that you really wish you could have changed a year ago. So hopefully this video was helpful for you. Hopefully this video gave you some insight. I didn't want to make it too complicated. We could have gone into a lot of different examples, a lot of different scenarios. But this one right here, I think, illustrates the point the best. So again, if you could like and subscribe to our channel, we do get into stuff like this all the time. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was educational for you. If my math was off by a couple bucks, don't shoot me. But I did my best based on an amortization schedule. So if you want information on how I got this information, if you want to know what websites you can go to do your own calculation, let me know in the comments. I can send you a link to that and let you know how I did it. So anyways, thanks for joining me today, and good luck with your real estate endeavors. Hopefully you do well, and let me know if I can do anything for you. Our website's idahopulse.com. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks.